Welcome to Oye Cinema Club. My name's Dino, and I'll be your host for today's movie, which we are discussing The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Along with me, we have Steve, JP, Naomi, and Jason. So yeah, I chose The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly because it's one of my favorite films of all time. It's a Western directed by Sergio Leone. It has Clint Eastwood, Eli Wallach, Lee Van Cleef, and so many other movies, so many other directors have been inspired or taken directly from Sergio Leone movies, as well as from the music that was composed by Ennio Morricone, who just passed away, if I'm not mistaken, and probably the last American film that he did music for was The Hateful Eight for even Tarantino. So it's a Western, and I just really enjoyed it. I grew up watching Westerns, and then I rediscovered these films, especially seeing all the different Clint Eastwood spaghetti Western films out there. So that is kind of why I picked it. And I want to hear a little bit of people that maybe haven't seen it yet, what their first impressions of it were before I comment more about it. So if anyone has a first impression, they can go ahead and go.
I've seen it.
Okay, well then I'll go first then, because I haven't. My first impression of this movie was, God damn, this is gonna be long. That was literally my first impression, because I was just like, when I saw the time, I'm like, oh my God, how am I gonna make it? Just because it's hard. It's hard, man. Like, even I remember when Disney Plus came out. Basically, I was like, okay, I got Disney Plus. I'm gonna check out the Avengers, and I already saw it in theaters. But then when I saw the time that it was 3 hours, I was like, I gotta think about it. Like, it's not like a 3 hour movie is very, like, you have to plan for it. It's very difficult for someone to just sit and be like, all right, I'm along for the ride, unless you don't got nothing going in your life. But so yeah, so that was my first impression, as my first thought. And then when I actually when I first started, like, watching the movie, I started appreciating it slowly, like, as I got more into the movie. Because the other thing was, it's a Western. Does a Western need to be 3 hours long? Like, like, I just had those thoughts. But the more the movie kept going on, and the way certain things were introduced to the movie, like how they introduced, like, the first characters, like the good, the bad, and the ugly. I love that sequence. It's unique, and you can see other people that have copied even that. For example, even on music videos, I've seen that style, that has been done. And yeah, like, cinematography, everything. It was like, really, that's what really got me into the film, was like the way it was driven, and the fact that they also didn't necessarily use excessive dialogue to set up certain scenes or certain things. There was a lot that went hand in hand with, like, the Chaplin technique, in a way that is, like, very silent, but you get what's going on, or their motive and things like that is very subtle. And I love that type of cinematography and acting and film in general. So those were my initial thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. For me, like, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of not. I had to hold back a few stuff for the film because I've never seen it. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a big fan of Clint Eastwood or his directorial films. I mean, the only one that I liked was maybe Million Dollar Baby, but the other films not so much. Some of them were kind of problematic, and the dude's also kind of crazy in his old age. But but no, it was funny because, like, I knew of spaghetti westerns because of the Tarantino movie with Leonardo DiCaprio. The Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that one. So when the credits started rolling and, like, it was all Italians, I'm like, oh shit, this is spaghetti western that we're about to watch. So I was like, okay, let's bring in the campiness. Let's see the bad dubs. I started, like, getting ready, but I was kind of surprised that even though Clint Eastwood is the star of the film, I don't think it was really his story. Like, I actually was kind of rooting for Tuco's character, which another thing was something I had to put behind the lines. Like, okay, it's a white dude playing Mexican. It's chill. It's whatever. I don't like just enjoy the ride right now. Just who gives a shit, right? Because his character was the first one that we're introduced to, and he's the only one that has actual links to almost all the characters within the story itself. So I was like, man, this is more his fucking like story right now, and I kind of wish that they went with an actual like Hispanic person to do the role. But you know, it's back in the day. It's whatever. Eli did a good job portraying the guy, and I was actually the dude's a fucking bastard. The character's a bastard, but I was like kind of rooting for him at the end. So it was surprising, and like just like Des said, like I saw it was 3 hours, so I was kind of expecting like, okay, this is gonna be like a fucking like I gotta keep my eyes open like Apocalypse Now and stuff. But no, like it was actually pretty chill. Like it's not a difficult movie. There's some times where I feel like it went off the fucking rails, or like, okay, this is almost beyond belief right now for my liking, but you know, it was still fun, you know. So like, and it was a good learning experience for me to finally get all the pop culture references from other media. Whereas like I knew that they were from some Western, but I did not know that they originate from this particular film. So I guess once we get into later talks, I'll probably like we could get into that. But for now, it's like, yeah, I was kind of expecting it to be whatever, but I actually enjoyed it.
First impression. I've actually watched this movie several times with my dad. It's his favorite film. We actually listen to the soundtrack every weekend because we like to party. So it's one of those songs that just plays in the background while we're just like doing our thing, me mostly drawing or something. So this is the first time I've finished the film. I've watched bits and pieces because my dad has always treated this movie as a life lesson movie. Like, this is how it was back then, así vivían antes, or this is how culture was back then. So it's always like a life lesson with him. So I was happy I was able to finish the movie with him. However, I did a two-day thing where I watched half the movie one day and then the next day I watched the other. Just because there was just so much, and you know, my dad can't take a lot of movies either. So he had shared with me about how the locations were not even in Southwest. And I'm like, no way, where was it at? And it was filmed like in 19 locations. And I'm like, 19 fucking locations? That is crazy. So there's a list of locations. I don't know them on top of my head, but I was impressed that props made this movie, you know, the big thing. Like, props helped this movie give its tone. I really enjoy this movie. Like, there's so many references that many other films have brought upon. Like, The Book of Life brings the ecstasy gold. One of the songs that's in the, como se dice, the graveyard right behind JP's head. So yeah, like when this scene is going, this film, the ecstasy gold is playing, and it's just crazy how so many films have really like used this as a reference, and it's like a big thing in film pop culture. So that's my first impressions, you guys.
Perfect.
Perfect.
You said The Book of Life uses music from this movie?
Yes.
Yeah, the music is extraordinary. Maricón.
No, not Maricón.
Morricone.
Ennio Morricone.
Morricone.
Yeah.
It's a slur. It's a slur.
Yeah, it's the F. It's the gay F word.
In Spanish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You call someone a baguette, you know?
I'm sorry about that. I see why that's funny. Maricone.
No, Ennio Morricone. Morricone.
Maricone, right?
No,
No.
Morricone?
Yeah.
Morricone.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Morricone.
Yeah.
The music in the
Oh.
movie is like synonymous with like a ton of movies, like even in parody, right? And
Yeah.
it's definitely a record. Like you could put that vinyl on. I love that Naomi and her dad pop that on every weekend because that's something I would totally do. Like I actually have popped it on not a record but on Spotify. I just like to listen to it sometimes. I had forgot that during the final scene, the final fight scene, they used that song in Kill Bill.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, like they straight up, like he straight up lifted it, and like I just totally forgot. So that's cool. Um, what else about? There's something. Oh, the dialogue. I had also forgot that the dialogue is all subtitled, because of the way they had to dub it, because they shot the thing in Italy, which is cool, you know. And I agree, the props make the
Wait,
thing
wait.
really work.
My bad. I want to interject. So
Yeah.
the entire movie's in Italian?
So
Well,
I can explain more on
yeah,
that.
go ahead. You can explain it. Go ahead.
So since
Because the same, like, that happened to me throughout the movie. I was like, why doesn't the audio match their mouth?
Yeah.
so Sergio Leone, like the spaghetti westerns started specifically because Sergio Leone started doing westerns, and they were like B movies, cheaply made. He got Clint Eastwood over there, kind of. They were both a little bit unknown, and all his actors were from different countries. So, like in the first For a Fistful of Dollars, you had Clint Eastwood, who's American. Then the bad guy, I think, was German. Then, so there were all these different nationalities, and each one would do their dialogue in their language because they were also filming in the middle of nowhere. So back then, they didn't even bother trying to capture sound while filming because they already knew they were only really going to release it in Italy. So they were going to automatically dub it to Italian. So for a fistful of dollars, it wasn't until like 3 or 4 years later that Sergio Leone wanted Clint to come back to film a new movie, that they first brought the first movie over to the US, and that's the first time that Clint Eastwood had to redub over what he had done like 5 years before. And so just throughout all the films, you can kind of see who are not the American actors, which are the ones where the mouth doesn't match anything completely. Like the captain of the Union Army, I think, is one of the ones where you can tell really, that it doesn't match at all. And just to add to that, I don't know if you guys could tell, since I've seen it so much, there's about 15 minutes added to at least the Netflix version that in 2002 they included, not deleted scenes, but scenes that were only used in the Italian version. So they hadn't dubbed them to English back then. So they actually got Eli Wallach and Clint Eastwood in 2002 to go and dub. So you definitely notice more Eli Wallach in certain scenes just sounding really old. I don't know if you guys notice that. Maybe it's easier for me, but it was all the scenes that basically dealt with setting up, like going to get a map, or going when Eli Wallach had the chicken and he went in the cave, like that was redubbed in 2002 with a really old Eli Wallach. So there is a lot of scenes where if you've seen it a bunch, you're like, his voice sounds weird. Anyway, so that's all these spaghetti westerns were filmed without recording because it was automatically going to be dubbed. And it wasn't until after a couple of them had made it to the US that they did dub them almost immediately. So there are two versions of this film, the Italian one and the international version. And then now, I guess, in 2002, they came with the extended cut, which is basically the Italian version with the new dubbing of the scenes that weren't in the other one. To the point that the reason that they were called spaghetti westerns, it was first used as a derogatory term, because Hollywood wasn't very happy with how popular these westerns were, and that they seemed to be more bloody, more gory than the regular U.S. westerns at that time. So that's just another little tidbit of info there of how it was first, seen as a negative. Anyway, so that's the dubbing thing comes from the fact that they weren't even worried about trying to keep a American or English dub of the film.
Thank you, Dino.
Yeah.
I think for the most part, the movie holds up. It's been a while since I've seen it. Clint Eastwood, also I hadn't considered, like, Clint Eastwood is really handsome in this movie.
I'm sorry.
I mean, but he is though, right?
Yeah.
Looking real good.
I haven't seen like a older Clint Eastwood movie in a long time. Like everything I've seen from his in the last, honestly, in the last maybe 10 years has been his stuff that he's done in the last 20 years. So I hadn't, I forgot. I didn't forget that was Clint Eastwood. I just hadn't seen it. And I guess I didn't.
Very well. He aged very well.
Yeah, he did. He did age well, and I hadn't remembered, I guess I never thought about it when I first saw it. But I'm like, Clint Eastwood is like a movie star through and through. You know what I mean? Like, he's like a really good looking guy. What else did I notice about the movie? There's a few extra things that I had noticed for the first time. I second what JP said. I had a totally different, visceral reaction to the movie this time around that I, hadn't accounted for. I always saw Eastwood as the hero of the story. But then, I guess, because of, a new sense of consciousness that I may have, even when it came on and it said, the ugly, the bad, the good, I was like, why is he good? What makes him good? He's just as bad in ugly behavior as everybody else in the movie. He might be the worst one. You know what I mean? And then
real life.
Yeah, maybe also in real life. But it just kind of shook me a little bit. And as I was watching the movie, I found myself rooting for Tuco. I was like, I wanted Tuco to win. And, and at the end, I was like, wait a minute, does he let Tuco go at the end? Okay, he does. Great. Because if Tuco dies in this movie, then I don't think I would ever want to see it again, to be honest with you. I'd be totally good on it if he would have let Tuco die. I was like, that's so much trash.
So I'm with you there. The only reason I just couldn't get around the Tuco guy is because of the fact that this guy was not a real Mexican. That was just the reason why, no matter what he did, I low-key had hate in my heart, going how did they do this? This is ridiculous. From the beginning, you can tell.
Yeah. And then he meets up his brother later in the film. I think the brother may be Sicilian, but even the brother looks closer to the nationality than Tuco did. But
Well, there's that I can't tell.
No,
is it that I couldn't tell.
No, I think part of it is also there were so many blonde Italians, in the movie. You'd have thought, man, the West, the old West was just a whole bunch of blonde, tan guys, because it's mainly all Italians, and they filmed a lot in Spain as well. The Tuco thing, yeah, definitely. He was really bad, Eli Wallach, in The Magnificent Seven. He's the bad guy in that. And in that one, it is ridiculous. But in this one, the way I've really grew to like Eli Wallach, and I see this one more the mannerisms, just like his acting choices. I try to kind of I understand, it's yeah, he's not Mexican. He's not even Latino. He's this little Jewish guy. But I did root for him. I think there's this great thing, and this is what made the spaghetti westerns also different from the American ones, was the whole idea of the good, and I think that's one thing, it's a very, blurred line, what is good, what is bad, right? That kind of thing. And I was just thinking the same thing of why is Clint, like, he's the pretty boy, like, he must be the good. You got Tuco, that's the, and I was thinking, Tuco is George Costanza. Like, he's just like this disgusting little guy, and it's really annoying at times, but man, you really hope that he, is able to win one.
Yeah. Because he's such an underdog. I mean, but he's also he's a dirty fucking trickster. But it's like, I would pull shit like that, though. Because no one can pull cool like Clint or fucking Angel Eyes, you know, because that's their character, is they're fucking cool.
Yeah.
But, like, Tuco was the only one that, like, had legitimate flaws and, like, a fucking end game goal, you know?
Tuco's first thing in the movie is him jumping out of the window holding a turkey leg.
Yeah.
I mean, Tuco is such a trickster. He tricked Jason into thinking he was really Mexican.
Yeah.
There you go.
He's good.
Talking about those Eurocentric features that Clint Eastwood had. I mean, I think that's good marketing back in the time as this was released. I mean, you're talking about two continents having this film to promote what's good. That brought like a mentality of like,
bro, cigarettes?
Right?
Cigarettes?
Come on.
They had a huge plug off of this movie.
Exactly.
What do you mean?
And the cigar business, too.
That was another market, too.
You could smoke cigars. You could chew cigars.
Bro, the scenes that were like the cool looking scenes that they were like getting those really close-up shots, those were the commercials, bro. They were taking those.
But not in Italy. You see, that's the thing, right? Like, in our mindset, we think about that. But that was just character choice. But you're right. And it's not like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where he's doing the Red Apple cigarette commercials. Like, it was, Italy was a little different. So, sidetracking, I guess, from the ethnic casting and all that, since again, I knew I was going to kind of manage this, I took some liberty and I timed certain spots. For instance, before anyone spoke, just as soon as like the scene left the credits, so not even taking into account the credits.
Before you say that, I clocked it too.
Oh yeah, you clocked it too?
Well, I just paused the movie because I was like, wow, that's the first time someone speaks. So I paused it. So I didn't account for the credits.
Okay, so mine is past credits and the camera opens up, and it was 7.5 minutes.
Yeah, that seems about right.
And so what do you remember what yours was with credits?
It was like 10:39.
Yeah. It's like 11 minutes before any dialogue is spoken.
That's crazy because I didn't feel that actually. Because so much was happening that you kind of forget that no one has spoke.
Yeah, and that's what I really liked of these spaghetti westerns, or Sergio Leone, because he ended up doing more than just spaghetti westerns. But him and the combination with music, right? Someone had mentioned also Charlie Chaplin, and so many close-ups of the eyes, right? Like that kind of just tells you everything you want to know.
Eyes are the portal of the soul.
You what?
Eyes are the portal of the soul, so I guess he wanted to capture the soul of the character.
And letting it breathe, right? Like just allow it to happen. Like imagine like them trying to do this for like a studio or something, and someone was like, wait, you got 10 minutes before anyone says something, before any shots are fired? Like, no, we gotta change that. Then I timed it when Tuco was running down towards the cemetery at the end. So like I timed it right after the cannonball and he like gets knocked by the first tombstone and then he starts running. That's 5 minutes and 40 seconds of him just running in circles for the first part of Ecstasy of Gold. And then they have like, I don't know, like 2 minutes of dialogue. And then, it's like the final three, duel, the trio duel, I guess, is another 5 minutes and 10 seconds of them going around in circles while the same song that just played, but in a different, you know, as a, like, in the last, like, 15 minutes or 20 minutes, like, 10 of that is just music and camera work. And that, to me, like, I was just thinking of, like, the cinematic thing of just, like, you know, it's going to be dumb luck that he falls and sees Arch Stanton, right, on a grave. Like, there's hundreds of tombstones. Like, it's gonna be dumb luck. But to take 5 minutes of him just running around in a circle with his, like, prancing arms of like, I don't know. I loved it. I just wanted to point out just the way that they use time or more music to tell the story. It's like allowing, you know, music being a character and the location or even props being a character itself. That was just something I wanted to add.
Especially in the cemetery scene, because like you're pretty much on the ride with him. Like you're also frantically trying to find the fucking grave, and then it's almost nauseating because it's a circle around and around and around, and it's, if the camera's not following him directly, it's just still spinning. And like, oh god, that made me sick, but it was, you know, that's part of the experience. That was really good. Thank God that duel was only 5 minutes. Sorry.
Sorry.
Because I did feel like I was telling my girlfriend, when they were about to duel, I was like, yo, like what if this is like the last hour of the film? What if this fucking duel is a fucking hour because this is taking so long?
Yeah, like I'm not gonna lie, there were moments in the middle that I started doing some other shit, you know? Like I went to the kitchen, I grabbed some things, I started doing stuff. Like the movie didn't capture my entire attention for me to sit down and watch it the 3 hours fully, but I did power through. And there were certain moments that, again, I guess I'm viewing it from the lens of a hater, low key, maybe, because I'm just like, I understand certain moments and why you do this and that, but I was just like, you could have cut this down, baby. Like, you could have shortened this down. Why do I need to have so much here to just tell me this one simple thing?
I do agree on, so like the 15 minutes that I guess the Italian version was, that they've now added, was all exposition. Because like it was all like, it was angel eyes going into that one fort and trying to find out the last place that I guess Bill Carson was, right? And like, you don't need that. Like, he's gonna follow. Like, you know, there another Tuco was in like 2 or 3 scenes where it was just exposition, right? It's like, you don't need that. Like, or even Clint Eastwood having to explain like, well, there's a lot of Yankees and a lot of Confederates or rebels, and I don't really want to be like, we know that. Like, those are all scenes that were added back that I was just like, it just extends it. There's already it's so good without those 15 or 20 minutes. Like, no need to add that except for just like, hey, these were some extra scenes from back in the day that for me sounded weird because I've seen it so many times, I guess, in the other versions, that I could tell the difference between the voices of like, oh, this is, it reminded me of The Irishman, in the sense of like Robert De Niro trying to run like a 30-year-old, only that it's Eli Wallach in his 80s trying to do the voice of a 30-year-old or a 20-year-old, whatever age he's supposed to be. But yeah, so I agree. They could have kept it shorter in that sense. Real quick though, I don't know, unless anybody wants, I would like to hear your guys' thought. There's been a little bit about it, but on the idea of like the good versus evil type of thing, and just, I guess, movies in general, or just in real life as well.
I think it has to do with everyone's perception of what's good and evil. I mean, I'm sure when this film came out, little kids were watching it or whatever, they probably thought Angel Eyes was the good guy or Tuco was the good guy, like here, JP, for example. But like, I think it has to do with the perception of the individual, who is good and who's bad. That's my thought.
It's easy. I mean, the movie tells you the white blondes with blue eyes and smoke cigarettes Americans are the good ones. The bad ones are the foreigners from Europe. And the ugly ones are the Mexicans that pretend to be Mexicans. So that's just the moral of the movie.
And who is Eli Wallach then? No, not Eli Wallach. Who is Leone Cleef?
He's the bad one from Europe.
Oh, he's American though, but yeah.
Oh, I thought he was German or something. Oh yeah.
Oh no, that was it. Those are the other main characters.
I want to bring back the intro. I think the typography on that is so pop culture. Like, I enjoy watching it every time. I'm like, the typography has this certain chemistry around it where you're like, fuck yeah, this is a Western film. That slab serif block letters that they used to use back when.
Right.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Alive.
And the paint smear to reveal the wording. Even though Clint in I think the Netflix one was the only one with a fucking credit with his picture on it. It's like Clint Eastwood, and then you have the other people showing up, but no, they got credited with different times. People. Yeah,
we can fight.
Yo, quick question. So at this point, maybe I was doing too much stuff or whatever, but I got lost in this part. So I know they infiltrated this army thing or whatever, but how can they like just nonchalantly grab explosives and just
right?
Because you're fighting, everyone's distracted out of their own little itinerary and spot that they have. And trench.
Yeah, the captain kind of told them that that's what he wanted to do and that he already had planned it. You know, so that's where they got it in their mind, because the captain would even when there's a ceasefire and everyone goes to get the wounded, that's when you could go put the dynamite.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to mention, which I guess kind of goes with Charlie Chaplin and also Buster Keaton movies or old movies, the film to work at times can only work two-dimensionally, if that makes sense, in the sense that the characters only see and what we see and only hear what we, because that's the way, kind of like at the end in the cemetery, Tuco is there digging. There's no way he won't hear Blondie walking on those stones and then throws a shovel, right? And then like not even a minute later, Angel Eyes does the same thing. So, or when they're walking and Tuco's like, oh, you gotta follow me, I know what I'm doing. And then the Union Army is just like comes into frame. So certain things definitely in these movies from back in the day, it works with the characters only can see what we see. And it's similar in that scene in the trench warfare, which, even though for me, again, the more I talk about it, I'm like, I love this movie. Yeah. But the captain of the Union, like him talking about war and fighting, I think and like his whole concept, I think it's one of the best, like, it's very rough, but like the message that he has there, I think is amazing. Of just like, if I can just blow up this bridge, maybe I can save a few hundred people. You know, like, and his views on war and what it takes to be a good soldier or whatever. That to me, as badly as it's dubbed, I think it's one of my favorite, like, talking about war and just how stupid it is, you know.
War is not really stupid. That's my last name, fool.
War is not really stupid?
I got offended right now. I'm like, hey, that's my last name.
Well,
I guess it's a deer.
there's a difference
gosh.
between guerra and war, right?
What? One's in
Yeah.
Spanish and one's in English.
Well, at least the captain's dub wasn't as like obvious as like other dubs. Like I think when Angel Eye in the deleted scenes when he meets up with the in that Confederate army, like you could tell like, oh, this guy is obviously in a sound booth. Like this guy must have done some anime dubs in the past. Like he's just like and it's so crisp and clear.
Bro, that's how I was. I was like, yo, I literally just got done watching an anime, and then I started watching this movie, and I'm like, this dub is horrible.
Well, because for that, Lee Van Cleef died in like '88, so they just grabbed someone who apparently sounded like Lee Van Cleef, which I don't know, it didn't sound like him at all. It's like for one scene, you really had to go and get a guy to do the voice. Like, come on.
I legit, you guys stopped the movie to like put the time of when people spoke or whatever. I just stopped the movie to make sure that I had the right audio, because I was just like, what's going on? This is
I will
Netflix.
say, he gets better. The Sergio Leone movies, they get dubbed better as the years go. So like Fistful of Dollars.
I mean, you would think technology, you know, AI.
Well, yeah, Fistful of Dollars is a shit show. Then you have For a Few Dollars More, it gets better. Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, pretty good. Then you have Once Upon a Time in the West. That's also amazing. And then you have Once Upon a Time in America. And that's all American actors. And that's Jennifer Connelly's first role, I believe. And she's like 14 or 15 in it. But, so yeah, they get better. Okay, so we kind of know what the, I guess, the downfalls of the movies are. Negative. Anyone have favorite moments?
I'll go first since I've been burying this movie the entire time. I love the part. Maybe it's because I'm biased and I don't like him as a person or something. But I love the part where Clint Eastwood was getting the shit beat out of him, and he got the karma of the fake Mexican. Yeah. And he got to like taste what it's like to not have water and to walk and all that shit. I was like, yeah, fuck you. Like that made me feel good on the inside.
You know what's funny? The first time I saw that movie, I had the exact opposite feeling. I was like, oh man, you're giving it to Clint way worse than he gave it to you, Eli. Like you're really working him over. That's not cool. But then this time around, I'm like, yeah, man, like kick him in his chest, bro. You know what I mean? I had a totally different reaction this go around.
Bro, every time Tuco was like, you never had a rope in your neck all the time.
So I was like, that's a fair argument.
It's a super fair argument. Clint's like, shut up. I don't wear the rope.
Like, I don't have to save your ass.
Like, what a jerk.
Right? But and like, that's how you get the money.
and then at the end, here's a shovel. Dig, you Mexican. You know?
Which, by the way,
what audio were you using? That didn't come up in my audio.
Which, also, by the way, I actually loved this. But at the same time, I couldn't help but think like, how are they getting away with it when Tuco is fucking like impersonating a Confederate soldier and the Confederates don't question it? It's like, he's obviously not from the South. Well, he's from the South, but not your South.
Well, you know what? I thought about that too. And the way I rationalized it in my head was some of it was convincing. Like when he first pulled up, he's kind of faking the accent pretty well. Like he's overlaying like a double accent basically, right?
Especially at the church.
Right, exactly. And then, or I mean, when he first pulls up to get directions or whatever, remember?
Yeah.
That was just a different voiceover artist.
I mean, it could have been. It seemed like he was doing a good job though. Because he's like, you know, he has the Hispanic Mexican accent. Well, he has his regular accent, then he's layering it with the Mexican accent, then he's like overlaying that with the. I bought it,
which
but
which is hard to do for like a vocal artist.
I think during like that type of wartime, the way I like placed it in my head is that they let anybody fight for them. You know, I was reading not too long ago that the rebel army even had a few black soldiers fighting for them, like fighting against their own interests. Like I don't know if they didn't know any better or if they just, I don't know what the case was, but there are, you know, historic documents. So they just sort of let anybody fight. It was war and we needed the bodies. You know what I mean? And then maybe you're getting paid.
If I'm not mistaken, and I don't know, I think I Wikipedia this afterwards, but in John Leguizamo's last special, Latin American History for Morons, he was workshopping in it down in La Jolla when I was working there. But I believe there was, I think it was for the Confederate Army, there was like a Latina that pretended to be a guy because she wanted to go follow her boo and like make sure, I guess, I would say that he wasn't cheating on her. That's me adding that. But yeah, because he's
how Mulan happened, right? She pretended to be a man.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
but not for another man. Well, for her dad, but.
John Leguizamo brought up just that Latinos have been in every single military skirmish that the U.S. has also been in, you know, just as Latinos, you know, unite. Okay, so we're talking about favorites.
Favorite scenes, right?
Favorite scenes, yeah.
Can I say that I really liked some of the, I was going to say object work, but I guess it is sort of object work. Like when Tuco's in the gun store that first time around, and he gets all these like cool guns, this, you know, Remington, this Colt, and all these other, you know, and he takes them apart. Like he doesn't like any of them. Like I don't like any of these. These are all, and he takes it apart and he customizes his own gun to his liking. I'm like, that's a guy who knows what he needs. Like he's developing his own tool on the spot. Like, yep, this is it. This is for me. And then he's like, you know, he further customizes it by taking a little piece of string to wear his gun around his neck. I'm like, that is like, I don't think any other Western's ever done that. It's super cool. I don't know where it comes from. Like, that's an incredible choice. I don't know if that's in the script or if he thought of that or if it was the director. I don't know how they developed it, but that's super cool. And it's like, it's awkward too, which makes it kind of dope. And then there's like that moral lesson that he teaches the dude. Like, not even the moral lesson, just the lesson of life. Like when the guy comes in and he catches him in the bathtub and he thought he caught him slipping, and you know, of course he has a gun in the bathtub with him, and he's like, he goes, when it's time to shoot, don't talk. Yeah, you know. And I was like, that's fantastic. Like those are my favorite scenes in the movie.
Yeah, my favorite scene actually was the final one where Tuco is hung up basically on the tree and he's like left alone, because that was, for me, that was the most suspenseful moment of the film. Like not even the duel, like I wasn't in suspense, but at that moment, because they gave it he got a lot of time to himself, and you're almost with him things like, he's gonna come back, right? Is Blondie gonna come back? Is Clint gonna come back? Like, and you're just waiting for it. It's like, no, holy shit, like we're gonna see him fucking die. So I was just like mentally preparing myself, like, oh fuck, we're gonna see this motherfucker gets like hung up and suffocate to death. And it was gut wrenching, because you could see like the pain and him losing his air, like, and then just like seeing the treasure's right the fuck there. Like the gold is just, it's within hand's reach, but he's fucking at the edge of death. And finally, fucking Clint, call back right in the fucking first act, he decides to shoot the noose and let him go.
How cruel would it have been though to leave the gold there so that he can see the gold as he like fades to black? You know what I mean? Like,
that's how it was gonna end, and I was not gonna be okay with it either, because I was like, because you know, like I was already at the like again, like no, there is no good characters here. Well, I don't know why Clint has the title of good. I mean, maybe good looking, I don't know, or maybe in the Italian version it meant something else or whatever. But like him coming back is like, okay, that kind of reassures his so-called good status, because for some reason he just can't let Tuco die, even though like Tuco had so many chances and moments where he was gonna murk that guy.
I think the title is deceiving, and in Italian it's still il bueno. Yeah, I think it's like no, they're all bad. They're like I think the only like good guy you could maybe say is the brother, right? The brother, because he's a priest. I believe Eli Wallach, I think they were like, do something with the guns. And he had no idea what to do. So he just started taking them apart and putting them together.
Super cool.
Also, it's improvised.
Yeah. So that's why I think like his character choice, like the whole thing with like his teeth, because I saw it more, not so much Mexican, but because they also called him a rat. And like they brought that up a couple times. And I thought he did a lot of that kind of, in my mind, what kind of seems to be like rat characteristics, if you will. Now the callbacks. This is the first time I noticed that at the very beginning, when Tuco and Blondie are having their discussion about whatever, he's like, "I hope I see you in, you end up in a cemetery." And like I've seen like all these like callbacks or stuff that are kind of like foreshadowed or they talk about early on, and end up I've seen so many like small things that make me happy. Like when they have they're going with the dynamite and they see another crew of people with the stretchers, and so they're like, oh, we got to act like we're doing something. So they put down the stretcher and then they each lift a limb of a dead body. And as soon as they pass, they just like drop it. Like, I don't know. There's so many little things in the movie that are, that are precious, or just kind of like funny, or just like, this is fucked up. Like there's no reason why Clint is the good, because he does some horrible stuff. So yeah. Anyway, Naomi, did you say the war is good? Is what I heard is your favorite part of the movie, right?
That's because it's my last name. Are we still sharing like favorite scenes or what?
Yeah.
Okay. So my favorite scene is like in the beginning when Angel Eyes is looking for, like, he's bounty hunting for, and then he enters that home. Like, that's my favorite scene. I don't know why, but it's just like an epic scene, and it just like enhances that southwesternness of it. But I like this scene in particular because when I was little and I first remember seeing it in the beginning, like maybe when I was little, so there's this moment where Angel Eyes has his head down and there's a fly and the fly falls down. My thought when I was a child was like, did the fly fall in his soup and he's eating his soup? Oh my God, he's eating his fucking, the fly's in his soup. And I remember like telling my dad, hey, the fly's in his soup. Like, why is he eating it? Watch the movie. But those are like, that's my favorite scene of the movie. Just like when that whole terracotta style, that's super fine. I caught the essence of the movie.
The use of the utensils and the food, like the little ceramic, like drinking, like later on in the prison, that Tuco, there's something about them just using spoons. Like clearly forks were too expensive or something, because no matter what they're eating, it's always spoon, and it always seemed delicious to me. For like just
Breathe. Whatever they were, like that stew they were eating.
Yeah,
I wanted some of that so bad.
I don't know what I don't know. If
I was the complete opposite.
No, I think because the stew and soups were easy to make to feed a whole itinerary of people. I mean, a whole group of people. I think that's why they use the soup.
Plus, it's a bunch of dudes out in the wilderness. They don't want to cook. Like,
you
throw a bunch of vegetables and stuff
in a
into
pot.
like a pot and let it cook.
My thing was like, I was like, all right, y'all got money, but what are you gonna do with that money? Like, there's no Chipotle, there's no Starbucks. Like, There's no
They're about to
Robin
go to
Hood. You can't invest that. Like,
Y'all going to the saloon, bro.
So
Heck yeah, brothels.
Brothel, baby.
I feel that this is like maybe I'm wrong. This is one of the first like buddy cop movies, if you will. I mean, they're not cops, right? But like there's so many different movies, kind of like 48 Hours, maybe, or where it's like just trying to one up each other. Mm-hmm. And the movie ends, right? They each have about $2,000. Does Tuco just say like, you know what? I think maybe we're even. Like, I saved him a bunch, he saved me a bunch, and I have the money now, and he has money? Or is it just gonna continue? Like, oh no, like I'm gonna go kill this, because he's like, hey, how that do? And it ends with like, ah! So like, is Tuco like, I'm taking my $2,000 and I'm gonna go for more voice classes to try and sound more Mexican for Steve's pleasure, or do I just keep trying to hunt down Blondie?
Nah, spin-off show, spin-off movie, Just the Ugly.
I like
That's
it.
the only story we want to hear. The ugly.
The ugly. Okay, I got a question for you guys, if you would allow me. When he first goes back to see his cousins or brothers, are those his cousins or brothers in the out there?
Just a gang.
Just his gang?
Gang?
Yeah.
I thought it was brothers or something.
I thought he said brothers too, but anyways, when he first gets there, he there's like a narration that happens where like nobody's speaking, and he kind of like pokes the chicken from behind the corner, and he comes out and someone says something, but there's nobody around. And like it's not really his voice, but the narration says, if you work for a living, then why do you kill yourself working?
Oh, I caught that. Yes.
Did you guys catch that? No?
That's old Eli Wallach.
Yeah. It's part of the redubbing.
But his mouth isn't moving or anything.
Oh, well, but it's old Eli Wallach narrating his inner thoughts, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. It doesn't really fit, like, and it happens early enough in the movie where you would think like maybe the movie's gonna have more of that, right? What do you guys think that means? What'd you say, Naomi?
A subliminal message? I don't know.
It's definitely in there, right?
Can you repeat the line?
It says, if you work for a living, then why do you kill yourself working? If you work for a living, then why do you kill yourself working?
That's really deep.
It could be, I guess, like in comparison to like, because he even kind of talks about it with his actual brother. Because I think the gang is like, it's just a gang. I'm sure he uses the term brother more for as a camaraderie, if anything. Like, like he does not live an honest living. So why bother trying so hard to live an honest living and get nothing out of it when you could do whatever the fuck you want and get more? So I'm assuming that's probably what he meant by that, because it seemed like they were just dwelling in a cave doing who the fuck knows what. It's like, nah, let's go
Cooking
get this
potatoes.
fucking right. Like, and he even mocks him for it. It's like you gotta be really poor to be eating fucking potatoes. So I'm guessing it's him trying to seduce them into the idea of like, let's fucking rob this guy that I know and let's get some real fucking money. You know, like stop living in this hollow, you know what I mean?
That was some real money. I mean, they're talking about sticking this dude up for $4K back in like 1865, 1864.
Shit, I can give them $4K right now.
Hey.
What's it called? My dad paused this moment. He was like, hey, that's a life lesson right there. This dude is showing off and how we can get money. Remember that. Remember that. These people that do that are no bueno. And I'm like, all right, Dad. Good advice.
There's a lot of great lines, like when it's time to shoot, not talk, this one. But the one thing that really took me off is like they're cooking potatoes, and then he throws a fully feathered chicken in there. And I'm like...
The reason why they do that is to remove the feathers.
But not if you got potatoes already cooking.
So you remove the potatoes and throw them on cold water. You cook the motherfuckers. Come on,
You get hot water in a smaller pan.
in the kitchen.
Back in that day, they didn't give a fuck.
I'm sure again, like it was just him showing off, like saying, like you don't need this, we can get better. You know, like
because he was plucking it at first when he was just like talking to himself. But yeah.
Any of y'all have plucked a chicken before?
Yes.
I mean, I've handled a cock once, but I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I did a little bit of it. It was like I was in somewhere in Paraguay.
Of the chicken, of the cock?
Both.
Oh, okay.
I grew up with chickens and one cock. But yeah, so I've tried it. I didn't stay and like, hey, let's do it. And yesterday I helped butcher a couple lambs here. So there you go. I'm your 2020 Tuco right here.
Wait, you plucked the chickens in the cock?
Yeah, back in the day.
Oh, I'm about to say you're never supposed to eat the cock, right?
Only when you're done with them.
Because he's like more expensive than chickens, right?
It could be, but like in Paraguay, we had. So, side note, we went to this birthday party, and the party favors for the boys was a cock, like a baby, un gallito, and for the girls it was just chickens, like baby chicks. So my brother and I each ended up going home with freaking baby roosters. And so my parents are like, the fuck do we do now? Like, who goes to a birthday party and ends up...
cool party favorites?
Right? They're the best. So then...
I'm part of taking the florero out of the fucking quinceañera.
No, so then my parents were like, I guess we should get some chickens. So... I don't know how many chickens they bought. And then shortly after, my rooster got trampled. And I think it was the other, like, there can only be one type of thing happen. And he got, like, killed by my brother's rooster, who I hated, who ended up getting, like, the largest freaking talons. And I was like 5, and I would go into the chicken coop to get the eggs, and this rooster would, like, attack me. To the point where, like, he got a talon through my shoe into my foot. Wow. So anyway, so yeah, I've been around my fair share of chicks and cocks.
Man, fuck that bird.
Yeah, and at the end, once they got to a certain age, we cooked them all. We ate them all.
Never eat the cock.
Cause he gonna eat you. I killed my brother.
I killed my own brother.
I've been doing it wrong. I've been telling girls otherwise, you know.
Oh God.
All right, so
moving on.
I think maybe final thoughts unless people want to continue on other trains of thoughts of the movie.
That was weird.
Oh, my bad.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead. No, you go ahead. No, you go ahead.
So there was a lot of Catholicism jokes here. Judas, you sold my hide. That's one. Even when Judas was hung, it rained. So I feel like they use Judas a lot. And the reason why I'm referencing Judas is because he's the fool that betrayed Jesus.
Yeah.
And my mom brings Judas all the time. Every time I go and give her a hug, she's like, what does Judas want?
Oh, man.
Damn, mom, I can't give you a hug. And I'm like, this baby hard on me.
But what did you want?
A fucking hug, mom. But I guess it comes with her territory. But that's all I wanted to bring up. Just how they brought a lot of like Catholicism or like references on the Judas.
Yeah, and the very end, he's hanging from a tree with gold coins.
Oh shit! Yeah, just like Judas with the silver. I didn't put the two.
What? Hey, wow, that's crazy. Okay.
Go watch it again right now.
All 3 hours.
I've watched this film a couple times. And this is the first time I've actually like extended this full without life lessons in between. So kind of happy.
Yeah. I was surprised at like how like integral the fucking Civil War was to the plot. You know, I wasn't expecting like fucking unions and fucking the rebels like going at it like in the middle of this film. You know, like for some reason I was just expecting like just fucking old saloons and shit, but no, I was like they actually brought in like kind of a very important part of American history, and even like side characters like they legit have like opinions and like stuff at stake because of the fucking Civil War. So I was surprised by that. Like I didn't expect that out of the movie.
So I have a question because for the first, act of this movie, I actually watched it with my brother, and he had never seen it before, and we were talking about the similarities between samurai movies and all the Western movies and how they just totally steal from one another, but mostly the cowboy movies stole from the samurai movies. What samurai movie is this one akin to? Was there anything copied from a samurai movie, or is this just straight up its own thing?
I think this is straight up its own thing. But Sergio Leone's first spaghetti western with Clint Eastwood, For a Fistful of Dollar, is verbatim Yojimbo.
Yes.
So that one was verbatim Yojimbo, The Man with No Name, right? And the movies after that were, at least from Sergio Leone, were original. That I can tell. For a Fistful, For a Few Dollars More. Then he had this one. He had Once Upon a Time in the West, and then he had one called Duck, You Suckas, with James Corbett. And people are like, "What are you saying?" And he's like, "Duck, You Suckas." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And Sergio Leone was convinced that "Duck, You Suckas" was a saying in the U.S.
That's
and
funny.
yeah. So
Stop
that
trying to make it happen.
so that
Like,
one,
he was like here once and he heard some dude say it and he's like, yeah.
So that movie has two titles, either Duck You Suckas, which I think is the Italian one, and then in the U.S. they had it as A Fistful of Dynamite. But yeah, so you could say Clint Eastwood's character is Yojimbo, right? Which is the kind of anti-hero thing, but. That I'm aware this didn't really take from a samurai movie.
That's my final thought.
Chill.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. My final thought, I stand with what I said at the beginning. This movie is way too long. In my personal opinion, it is pleasant, it's decent once you get the gist of it. For me, I don't know, Dino. I'm sorry, it's not my type of movie, so I wouldn't give it a replay value of my end. But it was cool to watch it and stuff. And I loved the cinematography. I loved how subtle certain scenes were, especially the ones that weren't so dialogue heavy. I like that this is a movie that literally you can just put a board on the floor and you develop your characters and you go, okay, this character's over here and these characters are over here. Now, how can we slowly get them closer to each other in the same place? And you can kind of make up how you can make the movie in that way. That's how I would have written the movie if I'm developing this movie. And it was to my surprise a really, really good Western movie, because the ones I've seen are fucking horrible. I learned a lot. Thank you, Dino.
Yeah, I will say the majority of the American Westerns from the same period of time that this one came out are trash. Like the ones that John Wayne is this like superhero, like, no, he's just a racist fucking asshole.
I'm gonna get you Mexicans.
Yeah.
You pilgrims.
Yo, engines. So a couple final thoughts. When we talked about the music earlier and just Ecstasy of Gold, Metallica has a really popular cover of it, I believe. And then currently, I think it's in an AT&T commercial. But I feel like a year or two ago, there were like 2 or 3 different commercials that were using Ecstasy of Gold as their like underscoring. I don't know if it was like Ennio Morricone died. Let's just sell this one song off to as many different. Yeah. So
That's how it goes.
for me, I would totally watch if. Similarly with Lawrence of Arabia, if I see it going into a movie theater, Lawrence of Arabia was 70 millimeters. If I get a chance of seeing this 35 millimeter or something, I'll definitely go and watch it. Just because as TVs have gotten better, or I've gotten bigger TVs, I like, huh?
My bad. My bad.
All right, I'll continue. As it's gotten bigger, I've been able to notice things like in the outskirt, and I just enjoy it as almost as a training tool, right? Steve, you were talking about laying out the characters and how, and it is very much of the character arcs and the story arcs, and how they intertwine. So I would definitely recommend. I always recommend this movie, and I would watch it again tomorrow. No, I think I'm done for another 10 years. All right. Well, that was Oye Cinema Club talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I'll pass it back to Steve to talk about next week.
Next week, guess whose turn it is? Drum roll, please. It's mine.
All right. What do we got?
Back to me. This next week movie is The Big Short.
The Big Short.
Okay.
I'm gonna go into it hating it, just like you hated my movie. So I can already tell you, I'm gonna hate it.
It's about stocks and the house collapse of 2008 and 9. It's gonna be great.
The one house collapse of 2008 and 2009. Like, is it the house that Blondie was being hung in that came crashing down?
Yeah, what a great stroke of luck, that motherfucker.
Well, I look forward to watching that next week. I actually have been looking forward to seeing that again. So this is a great opportunity.
Same, especially with how things are going on right now in the economy. And all that, and markets are crashing. They're gonna come tumbling, So I'm very interested in rewatching it now with the current climate.
For sure. Right. Well, we'll catch you next week. Peace out.
Okay. Ciao. I think I have some bratwurst.
Hey, I'm Isaac Valadez from Oye Dímelo Network. I am the head videographer. You can click here to see more of my work, and please subscribe.